So, hello everyone, it was time for the Summer Time Render review, another amazing episode. Let's first say it right, half the episode is basically upside down titties, right? Like, of course it was amazing, yeah, she's probably the coolest character now. I don't know, Ushio is really Genki, Ushio's kid and so on, but man, you know, sledge boobies is just awesome, yeah. I will never stop calling her Boob Looper up because I think it was a beautiful character she is, and you know, first in her, obviously her oppias in episode 1 and so on, but this was amazing. I actually waited for him to come and kill and so on, and yeah, like I think it's interesting because in many aspects. So first of all, watching the episode, I of course wondered if Dad, right, was gonna be replaced. We've seen Dad in different scenes in early episodes, but of course he could have been replaced in like between the between some episode or whatever, right? But now it feels like he actually never was betrayed, right? He's again, because my guess here is that she's always have saved his life, right? Obviously, his clone comes in here in the bathroom, and she always. This probably has happened every loop so far, right? So I guess Dad has never been replaced, right? So that also be a good way to think about who can you trust, right? But I guess the father has been like protected by her every time, then, because I don't see them doing like another clone trying to get him, right? They're probably not. So she's probably always been here, right? And of course, his whole face explodes. I like the detail. I like how the detail is that basically it seems like how you hurt the shadow is how the full body takes the damage. So by punching really hard with the sledgehammer, of course, bam, into the ground, right, the face gets warped, right. So it's kind of pretty clear that. No, but I like the touch, right. So I'm imagining if you I don't know, if you stab the shadow, I guess the body's gonna bleed, right. If you like, I don't know, explode it with like an actual explosive weapon, I guess it's kind of like, you know, and so on. So it's interesting. They kind of have an effect, right? It seems to always be like a, how say it, like a timer, I guess. Yeah, but both Mio and Dad here are dying. Both of them had like maybe a minute or so of like time before it actually happened. So I guess it's a little bit affect the shadow. I guess it's because the actual shadow dies, and then the body, kind of the fake body, is like, but then it kind of gets the effect, right? So some kind of delayed effect there. But anyway, she really talked about this in the last episode, but also this episode here, right? We see that she's immediately going in and see, oh, that guy on the boat, the ferryman or there, right? He's a shadow. So she's clearly always been, because imagine that, she's been killing a lot of shadows, right? And one thing that I said in reaction part 2, I really wondered the episode, is that, okay, do we have other shadows? And I mean, other as a side island, right? Has she been like a shadow hunter, you know, in Tokyo or whatever? It really goes off as like, she clearly comes to the island knowing who to shoot and so on, right? Of course, it might be in a time loop and, you know, her time imagine blah 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 and so on. It might be explained in different ways, but it also feels like she's like, oh yeah, I'm like a shadow hunter, you know? She comes in like shadow hunter with big tits, you know? That's kind of how she comes out. Yeah, you're like, oh, she's been like killing shadows left and right for years, I think. But I think it was a great episode in the sense that, you know, we get. But yeah, I like that we got different other character aspect, right? But yeah, I like that we got to see from other cast perspective. I could imagine definitely we might see an Ushio power, right? Later episode. And that did another little bit, that they kept baiting that Ushio was alive. Because we saw that Ushio was awake on the shore, right? I still think that it's a shadow with her spirit, right? The shadow body with her soul. That's kind of my theory, right? And then we saw some walking, we only saw like footprints on the sand. So they kept baiting us to not see Ushio. But anyway, my point is that I can imagine I was like getting like an Ushio power and Mio and so on too, right? And maybe Tuki so on there. But especially like an Ushio power also would make sense, right? But great episode in the show, and also showed us that she was actually looked in on the body of Ushio, right? Oh, this girl had been strangled, she probably killed by a shadow, right? And so on, and she also was like, she's a shadow, and, you know, seeing her looking at different, what's called shadows, and like, you know, figuring out this family, oh, this is my shadow friend, but she's actually a shadow now, her daughter is evil, and all this stuff, right? So that's really interesting. And also, of course, one thing I really like this scene, right? Because it's exactly what I said last episode in my last review, that I felt that arguably the most important thing that we learned last episode, from like, you know, a hero perspective, and not like the mother or so on, was actually the general knowledge of shadows, right? Exactly as the last episode. What if you shoot the shadow? But then you know that it's a shadow or not. So as you see, that by shooting his shadow, okay, he's not a shadow, right? And again, I just reiterate that this is really important, right? Because now, like, you know, if you meet a new person, you can always stab the shadow, or you can turn the shadow on fire, or whatever. You cannot attack the shadow. if they don't let you do that, right, then you know they're evil, right? Or you can do it, this guy, he shoots Shadow on distance, right? It's like he doesn't trust him, so he snipes Shadow, don't even give him a, you know, a request, right? Because if he was Shadow, he would die, like whatever, right? It's like a demon, whatever cares if you kill him, right? So yeah, I think just like I said last episode, I do think that's the most important, most important information, right? Yes, we have the big Shadow, we have the mother and so on, right? But all of that stuff is stuff you can learn later anyway. If I want to survive this, like, you know, time loop, right, this game, so to speak, knowing how to defeat the enemies, or so at least be able to detect them, right? As you also see when he saw the ant that they avoided, right, with the mom and so on, so avoiding the ant, right? So yeah, that is much more important, I would say, because that really like alters how you act in the time loop, right? Because now that he immediately like, oh yeah, that mom is evil, right? You know, he already knew that basically. He already figured it out from previous times, more or less, right? But now it's like, oh, I see, you know, the family is evil, as I expected, right? So now he's like, oh yeah, they're all evil. So, but that's really, really important, right? Like, I could see with Boob Loop, when she enters the island, she's like, oh, that guy is an evil guy, or he's a Shadow, right? Yeah, immediately, right? So I think it's the most important information, really, to be able to beat this horror thing, right? But the other stuff, like who is behind it or whatever, that you can take care of later, where you can defeat the kids, right? You can defeat their evil spawns, but you need the weakness, right? So again, I think it was a great scene here, really showing that, okay, we shoot the Shadow, okay, bam, you know, he's... Lastly, we get this thing, right? Again, back to the someone died or something with the kids, right? This is almost not the same thing as the drowning incident, but you also talked about that as well, right? So here we see, you know, Boob Looper, so I always call it Sensei. Yeah, I was like, no, I will not stop calling it that. Coolest name ever, man. You can stuck in a time loop in her titties. Come, I will never stop. But anyway, yeah, I think it's interesting that she also has, you know, oh, I was here as a kid when she was like, I don't know, 14 or whatever, you know, visiting the island, and then this person died, or, you know, almost died, or maybe did die and turned into Shadow, right? She also has one of these like, oh, I remember when this thing happened, when this person, you know, got injured or, you know, basically died, right? Like someone is bleeding out, right? We don't know what happened. The episode doesn't explain. I don't know what happened. We can only tell us, but yeah, like, But it definitely feels similar to, as I say again, the drowning, right? That we see Mio, we see them like crying and so on at the ocean, right? And she's crying out here, someone is dying, right? And he's like on the island clearly. So I feel again this is gonna be maybe explanation, right? Because I mean, we know the kid is evil and the mom is a Shadow too, right? About the evil. Couldn't this maybe be the time then when mommy, let's talk to her later, this is probably she got replaced, right? So it really feels like they've been replaced since ever, right? Same thing then again, you know, back to the drowning, that could trigger something, right? I talked about. But it feels like this is not here when her, you know, bestie that her whole family is Shadows, right? This is probably why, right? I think you said the drowning. This is probably the trigger why that woman got, you know, turned into a Shadow, right? And then we see later that yeah, she turned her daughter and husband into Shadows. So that's something like that, yeah. That's my guess at least. Anyway, what do you guys think? Subscribe to that or so on. You know, hammer, smash, hammer that like button, share videos, so on. Subscribe as well, guys. See you guys, of course, tomorrow with Kaguya-sama. Kaguya-sama, awesome, right? Check out, of course, also a little demon girl who's coming out there tonight. And obviously Vertigo, which I really like, right? Or a time loop anime. I said last week too. I think Vertigo Road is like one of the best anime this season, right? And also time looping, right? It's not similar to this anime, but it's so much similar. I really like it. I can't recommend it. If it's all animes I feel no one else talks about, I'm like, oh, it's really good anime. I always keep trying to push it because I'm like, it needs more. This anime is very popular, right? So I don't need to push, say, watch Summertime Render. But I feel I need to say people watch, you know, Shukkei Vertigo because it's awesome. It's really good. It's maybe not as good as this anime, but it's definitely one of my favorite anime season. And I don't think like anyone else will use it. Something like one other person basically, like me and one dude, you know. It's like, I'm like, hey, come on guys, this anime is awesome. But anyways, see you guys and have a great day.